Welcome to Tales of Hope, where every paw print counts. Animal tie in the house, spreading love, hear the sounds. Every week animal stories, rights and welfare in the mix. Step up, take action, we're giving animals a fix. Tales of Hope, raise your voice, make some noise. Change the game for every animal, girl and boy. One world, one fight, let's turn the page. A future for the voiceless, bring hope to center stage.
Moving forward, how can alternate dispute resolution help people and communities resolve emotionally charged animal-related conflicts more compassionately? Now, this is something that I want to know because I've been also dealing with a lot of these community issues, when it comes to these animals. All these voiceless.
So alternative dispute resolution. So for those of you that don't necessarily know what that means, it means finding a creative solution to a problem, to a legal case, for example, to a dispute, rather than relying on the law, the legal system. So I did practice as a lawyer. My specialization was alternative dispute resolution. I'm naturally not a conflict-driven person, so I didn't feel comfortable encouraging my clients to go to court. So instead, I looked for ways for us to find creative solutions. And what that meant was that we would work together, and it was for mainly disputes that involved an ongoing relationship between people. So for example, pet custody. So, that first example that I gave of the dog, right, and trying to preserve the relationship of the two divorcing people because they were going to share the dog, neighbors having conflict. Those types of disputes are more harmonious and people feel better in the end. So the way to go about it is to not necessarily be very adversarial. So you come at it through a more genuine, compassionate approach. Doesn't always work, right? So that's the truth, but it can help to diffuse emotions, especially with animals. I mean, people get emotionally charged one way or another. You mentioned like the meat eaters or the people that are hurting those street dogs. Again, they get defensive. So it's not about coming at them, judging them. It's about trying to meet them halfway, if I may.
Absolutely. Can you share an example where you've successfully mediated an ADR sort of thing?
Yeah, so I did most of that in the pet custody claims. Yeah, that was the area that it was most conducive to, but also the dangerous dogs. So we have a situation here in Canada, I don't know what it's like in India, where the authorities can seize a dog, for example, off the street. A dangerous dog, deemed dangerous dog, has bitten someone. I can use the neighbor dispute, for example, and the dog goes to the pound. So the dog is in the shelter. So I've been able to work with the prosecutors in certain cases and the shelters to release the dog with certain conditions, as opposed to going to court where the decision could be euthanasia.
Wow.
Right? And so the dog's life gets spared, and then hopefully there's amicability between the parties as well. So I did that. There was one dog in particular, like it brings back fond memories. Her name was Reina, and she was deemed a dangerous dog. She didn't bite anyone. She was deemed a pit bull breed. She was a small dog and very, 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 very affectionate, lovely, and her pet parent, I like to call him guardian, fought so hard to have the dog released, and we did succeed by working with the shelter and the authorities rather than going through the court system. So that's a nice story. And she was a young dog too, and she's still, from what I remember a couple of years ago, alive and well and happy.
Touchwood. I liked what you said. There were two things that I loved about it. One is, calling pet parents and guardians, because that's what we are. Even I use that in my conversations. I hate when people call pet owners. We're not the owners, because I remember reading somewhere that the Hawaiian call themselves as kahu, which is, it's more of being a guardian to these souls, rather than it's like rather than thinking that we own them. But I have always used the term pet parent, and that is what
well, and it's the truth. And I mean, I did bring that up in my book, and I absolutely agree with you. That is so important. We are not really their owners if we're looking to move them out of the classification of property. You see, we're their guardians. And so I actually propose that as a model for the future of animal rights, to view our beloved companion animals as a guardianship.
Absolutely. I think that is
rather
something,
than an ownership, an own relationship.
Absolutely. It is something that I think we all need to, at the end of the day, I think we all humans need to evolve and accept that they are here and they are going to be with us. So I think
they're with us, not for us. There you go. You haven't even read my book yet, but you're quoting.
So
we're spiritually aligned. You see?
I think people like you, me, who understand about these souls, I think we go beyond words. I think it's something that comes within from our soul. It is not something that we're trying to cook up. It's a way of, I think, I believe it's the way of life that we're supposed to live with.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's a step in that direction, again, of realizing that there is a sacredness to not only our own relationship, but to all of life.
Absolutely.
Including our Mother Nature, our beautiful earth.
Exactly.
Preserving it, doing our part individually.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is what we all need to understand. It's not just because I think we've all forgotten a lot of things, or the basic rules of this game was, if you protect your animals, you will protect your environment as well. They are both a part of our ecosystem, which I think we are just, as humans, damaging the entire or corrupting the entire thing.
Yes. I'm just seeing, for example, in another province in Canada today, an announcement of wildfires. And, it's becoming rampant now. And again, as you said, it's all connected, part of our ecosystem. And there will be a point, I believe, when humanity will have to face that reality and make these changes in order to save our Earth.
I think,
and it's happening.
It's already happening.
Slowly, but it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. But I think we humans are still not, accepting that we all need to change and adapt and respect Mother Nature, respect everything. I think that is where we all need to come and agree. But I think, don't want to get into it, but I guess it's our political leaders who don't have the will to do it. It's, as individuals, I'm sure in every country there is a whole bunch, I can vouch for that, there are a whole lot of people who want the change, but because the willpower of the political leaders is not there, is where we are lacking.
Yes, you've said it so well. So it does start with the political leaders. It starts with that change, with petitions, with laws being changed by the political leaders, by the politicians. So they do have power, and they are the ones that can do better and must do better. I mean, when I was a volunteer, going way back when, I started to work with politicians when I was really young. When I went back after I volunteered at the shelter, just to learn about what they do. So I ended up getting in touch with politicians that I knew were favorable to the environment and cared about animals. Absolutely. And I aligned myself with them, knocked on their door, said, what can I do? How can I help? And we ended up changing some laws on the municipal level, which was great at the time. But yes, you're right. Not enough, of course. But that being said, it is happening. It really is.
I think we are taking our baby steps. All of us are moving in that
Baby
direction.
steps. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Now, moving forward, can you share a story where mediation prevented harm to an animal or created unexpected healing between the parties?
Yeah, I mean, there was so many stories that I can think of. But when I go into my own practice, because that's when I worked with people. There was a story of a horse, right? So trying to deal with a horse breeder, guardian, and not have that horse again euthanized because the horse could no longer be ridden. That was healing for, I would say, for both parties, because it ended up a happy story because the horse ended up going to a sanctuary rather
Wow.
than being killed. So that was really positive. And if it had gone to court, then it would have resulted in a very different result for the parties, because they weren't speaking when they first dealt with me. Like, it was, they couldn't sit in the same room, they couldn't look at each other. And so the process of mediation itself was healing, because I had to understand what the different interests were. And it turned out, believe it or not, both parties cared about the horse. You see? So that's what I had to focus on.
Absolutely.
No one really wanted the horse to be euthanized.
Absolutely. This is such a beautiful story, whether it's a small animal or a big animal. I think
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many.
so many of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's another story of a cat. I mean, again, with these custody cases where there was healing because, both parties wanted the cat, and it was a situation where the cat was really ill. So, like, we talked about veterinary costs and veterinary bills. And this whole blaming, shaming, right? And cats aren't maybe as transportable as dogs, right? Like, they can be territorial. So we had to come up with a solution that was more healing, rather than having a judge, which would have just imposed a decision, and then the other party wouldn't have been able to see the cat.
Absolutely. I think, these are the things
Ginger
that,
was the cat's name. I remember the cat's name now too.
that's so nice. I think, but what you've been telling me, I think this is something that we need, and not every matter needs to go to the court. I think with your ADR and all these things that, the alternate dispute resolutions, I think these can be a real, if people across the world can, incorporate it into their resolutions rather than, taking it legal. I think it would make a lot of difference.
Yeah, that is really helpful. So the legal, we can, of course, that opens the doors. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't, but when we're talking about healing in general, if we can avoid the courts, we can hopefully be a little bit more happier, right? Because we haven't spent a lot of money, time, resources, and only to have a judge impose a decision that we may not be happy with, right?
Well,
and then when the law is moving forward with respect to legal personhood, for example, that can involve organizations. For example, the Non-Human Rights Project. They're an organization in the States that have been advocating and trying to move chimps, elephants, primates, right, out of institutions into sanctuaries. And even if they lose, and when they do, when they get the habeas corpus, that still signifies positive change. Absolutely. In the legal system, and I always say, a social movement, because bringing these cases forward does bring some positivity. But I would say what you said is so true on an individual level, whether it's animal law or even any other type of law in general. The court system isn't always the best place to be.
Well, I'm not going to get into that because I've been through a serious legal battle for 7 years, and I know.
Oh dear! Oh no!
Yes, and
I'm so sorry to hear that.
No.
And it's draining, isn't it?
Draining. It's absolutely devastating, I can tell you
Yes,
that. And
devastating.
to be honest, I'm sorry being brutal about the word.
No, you're not. I'm glad you're bringing that up. And in fact, I did have some clients that absolutely didn't want to settle. They would go through the litigation system. And yes, so many emotions, emotionally charged and upset, angry, etc. So.
Absolutely. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that into much
Okay,
detail.
no problem.
Yeah,
For another conversation.
absolutely. I'm sure. Now, how do we move from awareness to action in the animal rights movement, especially amongst the youth and the professionals? I think, as youth and the professionals are the ones which we see as our future, I think they need to come forward as well. So, how can we see, apart from the awareness, to the action part?
Yeah, I mean, the youth, they are the future. So anyone, youth, whoever's listening, if you are younger than we are, if I may say, I hope you don't mind, Neil. You are the future. The youth is the change that's necessary and is going to make the positive impact for animals. And of course, the awareness starts with the education. So education is, both individual, collective, but inviting the youth into animal advocacy through, you and I talked about before we started, through social media, through YouTube, through the media outlets for them to learn, and the stories. I mean, to have knowledge of animal sentience and the experiences of animals, and then have meaningful involvement where they become participants, right? So from grassroots, I would say, all the way into the communities, right? So having them participate is I think, the key, actually.
I think I will go with that because I have been also talking to a lot of people who've been creating awareness in schools, educating.
Amazing.
Yes, in India itself, there are some of the NGOs that are taking this awareness level to the schools, but I think we're still far away from a long way, I would say, from what we would ideally like it. But I think, yes, there is a change that's happening in terms of, taking the awareness to the schools collectively and explaining to them how they can coexist with these animals.
Yeah, no, that's so important, and that's where it starts. It starts with the youth. And in addition to the education and, like you said, the awareness, getting them involved through education, right, in the school system, I would say that it can go back to what you and I talked about with our own journeys, which is personalize it.
Yes.
So have children meet animals, have them understand what slaughterhouses are, take them there. I love this quote that I've had in my heart and actually inspired me to become vegetarian when no one in my family was vegetarian. I'm of European ancestry where meat was a staple. And I remember liking the Beatles, they were past my, generation.
Yes.
But I had read that Paul McCartney was a vegetarian.
Yes.
And then this quote, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everybody would become vegetarian. And that's it. When I say personalize, children learn through their own experiences, through families, but also through their own communities and through their own personal relationships. So having them meet these dogs and take care of them, having them visit sanctuaries, see what happens to these wild animals that are confined and kept as entertainment, beaten even. I mean, I've seen some videos in India,
yes,
and it's just heartbreaking, absolutely. And then that builds their empathy.
Yes. I think it is very, very true what you mentioned, and I think what you said about Paul McCartney, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, people would change. I think they don't need to have a glass wall. If you just visit a slaughterhouse once, I think you will never after that ever eat meat, or
Yeah.
even think of consuming meat, sort of thing, for just to satisfy your taste buds.
Yes, just to satisfy your taste buds. And so seeing the animal suffer,
True.
that's it. Having that personal relationship and connection
Abs-
is important
is
for
very
them.
absolutely. Now, you have written a book which is A Voice for Animals.
Yeah.
What's one story from that book that continues to haunt or inspire?
Well, I love to stay positive. I can certainly share haunting stories, but I'll choose inspiring instead, if you don't mind.
Please,
I
please.
just want to keep it positive. And one story, when I read the question, remembered, and I just thought this is the story I'm going to say because it's the first one that entered my consciousness, was a story that I read actually as I was preparing the book. So as I was started writing the book, and it popped up on MSN on my Google feed, and it was the story of a shelter dog named Peanut. And I do talk about the story in my book, but this dog had been abandoned. It was just a small dog. I don't even remember what kind of dog. So the dog was abandoned at the shelter, severely abused. So just a severely horrible, physically beaten, just in just a terrible condition. In time, the shelter helped Peanut, right, to get back to adoptable state, right, back into health. And Peanut found a loving home. And one cold winter day, Peanut was just found barking. So Peanut's guardian, human guardian, let her guide him into this field. They lived in the country. And it turned out that Peanut was barking because there was a 3-year-old girl that was found in the cold. It was like a bitter winter cold day. And she was crying and no one else could hear her. But this dog has that sixth sense. And it just goes to show how they have, such resilience and specialness. So it showed me in two parts how important this story is, because the dog, Peanut, symbolically shows us how she can love again. She was an amazing dog after all that abuse, right? She was given a second chance where so many others aren't. And then her ability to save this little girl is just amazing. So that story, I like that story a lot because it's inspires me to want to continue to advocate for them.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful story to be
Thank
understanding,
you.
but I think people who can relate with it are the people who have empathy for animals. And
Yes.
what you rightly said, that Peanut even getting a second chance and still caring for the humans. I think this is something that we humans need to learn from them, is no, I mean, for an example, if we humans have a conflict, we would not even talk, we would not see each other's faces for years and ages. But with these voiceless souls, I have learned, you know, even for a second, if you're upset, the next moment you will still see he will come and cuddle with you, he will come and play.
Yes.
It's that unconditional love which we humans have
Yes.
to learn, to be honest. I think this is something, as I always say to people, I think I am evolving. They are teaching me so much. I mean,
Oh,
in
yeah.
my
Love that. They're such great teachers.
absolutely. If you start looking at things, if you start observing them closely, uh, just yesterday I had this thought process which I was just processing a lot of things, and I was really thinking about it. Do you know, it's like they don't need to speak. If you can understand from their body language, their behavior, and the way they communicate with you, is it is something that you have to learn. Because uh, I'll give you a small example. In my mother's
Sure.
compound, where I take care of these 6 kids, I mean, the days that 4 days a week since I'm there, you won't believe it. Uh, at 5 o'clock in the morning, early morning, at least three of them are right outside my mother's doorstep on a first, on the first
I
floor.
know.
It's like I know because they know that I am an early bird. So they're all there, three of them, 5 in the morning. They are right outside the door. Even if I might be late, maybe for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes, but they are right outside the door. Please come feed us. It's time for us. And even the evening meal that they have, I know it's like they don't need to tell me. I know between 4 and 5 in the evening is the time when they need their food. So it's like, if you see their behavior and if you understand, I think you don't need anything else. It's just about being able to understand. And with the love they have, I mean, even though there are certain people in the society in my mother's compound with which they don't treat them well, but I don't think they take that animosity with the other people. They see a human and they're so happy. You can see their tails wagging. They are trying to chase, walk behind you, just hoping that maybe you give them a small pet. Probably just pat them. But I think some of us humans, we have, we don't have that sort of an empathy. But as you rightly said with your Peanut's story, that is where I could relate is, there's so much that we can learn, because even though the way we treat them, but they would not retaliate with us in that fashion.
They wouldn't. And that's why they teach us what you said, unconditional love. They teach us patience, forgiveness. Peanut, that's why Peanut's story is one that stays in my heart, inspiring, because, a severely abused dog that just like that can go on to love, and then to show her ability to help another human
life.
It's just wonderful. Yeah. And how they live in the present moment. Haven't you found that? I find that most fascinating. The simple pleasures they have, right? Like you said.
Exactly. I mean, it's the small things that they, makes them happy. I think it's only we humans. I think we haven't evolved. We've actually,
we complicate things, don't we?
We do. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Now, moving to the next section would be a very interesting question is, in an age of climate crisis and zoonotic threats, how does veganism become not just a lifestyle, but a form of civic duty?
Oh yeah, that's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream. And it's starting again slowly. It's the realization that this is one planet, that we're all connected, that we have a duty to protect the planet. And then we can consider the scientific evidence that is supporting the need to reduce animal consumption, and how much water, the deforestation, and that becomes our duty, civic responsibility to take care of our planet. And one huge way is to go vegan. If the whole planet would do that, imagine the world we would have.
Absolutely. I think, that's fair, because there was somebody I was talking to very recently, and there was something that this person said which stuck with me, which is, I'll say in Hindi also, and I translated. She said, "Jeev nahi, to jahan nahi." So it's like, if you don't protect your animal, your small animals, even the little worms that are there which help your soil. So if you protect them, you will give life. And if you look at it, it's a part of the entire ecosystem, because one is connected to the other. Because I've seen so many stories on the social media where they introduced one of the animals to a deserted place, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over a period of time, they could see the climatic change, the trees growing, you had, everything happening, the birds coming back. So, I think it's we humans as a civic duty, we need to understand that they are all connected. We cannot say this is not connected to that. I think that is
No,
very,
and we also, yeah, and it also, that's very powerful. I really find that very profound. And I would extend that in saying that animals suffer at human hands, don't they? Mother Nature's devastation, not to lay blame on us, but it's the truth. If we look deeply at the cause of the chaos and the breakdown of our planet. So going back to that question, it really will likely become a civic duty for humanity, won't it?
I think over a
That's my
period.
sense.
No, absolutely. I absolutely relate to that, and I absolutely vouch for it with you. I would stand with you any day on those, causes that, yes, it's a civic duty to be more responsible towards what we consume and how we can actually, save our planet as well.
Yes.
Moving forward, what advice would you give to an emerging legal professional who wants to work in an animal law or start animal justice clinics in countries like India?
Oh wow, that's such a great question, because I hope that I can inspire someone to think about this. I would start small on an individual level. I would start my research, follow my passion, and educate myself in terms of learning as much as I can. I shared your story where I started as a volunteer at a shelter. I volunteered with the government, with my politicians, after university, and ended up becoming a lawyer. So they may want to pursue higher education and start an animal law practice. And they can reach out to other lawyers. I mean, this is a global movement, and we're all connected. And now with technology and social media, it's easier than ever to learn and gain information. When I started my practice years ago, I didn't have access to what they have now. And then I would say, on a more collective, let's say, level, you would want to align yourself with other organizations.
True.
That's another great way. Join organizations. They don't have to be in India, but a great way is in India. India needs help, needs more people to advocate for animals and on behalf of them. And I'm sure there are great organizations in India that do that. So
Yes.
align yourself with those, but also look abroad, volunteer at a shelter, a rescue, do what you're doing. That's so great. Get involved in government. Study animal law or animal issues, biology. There's sentience in university. So there's so much that can be done.
Absolutely. I think you rightly said, I think what you rightly said is we all need to understand. And today, with the digital, evolution that we have, it's so much easier if we can share information. And today people are willing to, share information.
Yes.
And I think that is where the whole point is, if we can all come together, join hands. Because I think this has something stayed with me from my corporate culture. Is I had read an article long time back in early 90s in Hong Kong, which said, you can't be an island on your own. All you need to do is build, bring those small boats together to make a bigger ship. So I think that is where it has stuck with me for all these years. It's like I've always believed in terms of getting everybody together. It's like together we can do a lot more than, doing it independently.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. And that's so, so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. To never feel alone and to align yourself with like-minded individuals
Right.
that can inspire you, that can lift you up, and you'd be amazed at how much can be done.
Absolutely. It's like there's so much that can be done when we are all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, and I love, India has such a rich spiritual culture and traditions. And from what I see, like the animals that are respected, I mean, it's such a great foundation to then be able to advocate for them.
That's true. in India, yes, if you look at it, we have all these Indian deities who are connected with
Yes.
either one or the other animals, and they've been there either their companions or their career, in the sense they've used them as transport thing, but they've always had a respect for these for these souls. So I think it's only thing, I don't know whether I should say this or not, but in India, yes, there are a lot of people. We know all this is there in our culture, but I think over the period of years, we've lost, our cultural beliefs and things that should have been there, because we adapted a lot towards the Western culture. That
Oh, so sorry to hear that. Yeah.
no, but I think it's the evolution that has happened,
Yeah,
with Indians.
yeah.
So I think we all just need to go back to our roots and see what we can take from there and bring the best of the European culture and have a fusion. I always believe it's amalgamate, best from every culture, because
Yes,
every
yes.
culture has something good. It's not that it doesn't.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And what you said and what we talked about at the very beginning was to go to the place of spirituality.
Yes.
If you're
And
spiritual and you deeply connect to the divine, to the source, whatever your belief system is, it becomes easier to respect life, all life forms, and this beautiful earth that we live in. More reverence is needed. And then we go to the youth, right? So teaching that and encouraging that. And then what you said, taking from the West, like, for example, all this social media, all this technology, in India and North America, everywhere, all worldwide, and using that for good.
yes, true.
Yeah.
So true. Now, moving to the last section of our podcast would be, you often say animals have no voice. What do you most want to say on their behalf to our listeners today?
Well, I'd love to say that, if I were speaking for animals and they could speak, they would say, we love, we suffer, we feel, and we want to live.
That is so important. We all want to live. And I think
Please see us as beings, not as objects, because we're not objects. We're not like, I'm sitting on this chair, and we're not a chair as a judge may impose a decision. We are living, breathing beings, and we deserve to be respected. And we matter.
that's so beautiful, and it's so rightly said, Now, moving to the last question. What gives you hope in a world that still often fails animal? And what keeps you going when the progress feels slow?
Well, the animals themselves, right? Those stories, going back to Peanut, the resilience of animals, and also the people like you, like your listeners, that care enough to want to do better and are willing to make changes on behalf of animals. So we're not alone, and we are growing as a movement, and we're not going anywhere. I mean, it's evolving, and the animals need us.
Absolutely.
They need our voices to represent them.
I think as humans, we need to, make or stand up for their rights as well. I think that is what,
Yes.
at the end of that. I am going to thank you so much, Suzana. I really
Thank you so much.
appreciate
Thank you.
for taking this time to be on the show from your schedule. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really enjoyed every minute of our conversation.
Thank you.